Good evening. Chair calls to order legislative session day 20-031. Council, due to the ongoing health emergency, we are still meeting with a modified agenda. At this time, I would ask you to please join us in standing for the pledge, followed by the opening prayer led by Councilman Schroeder. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dear Heavenly Father, creator and source of all goodness and love, please look kindly upon us. Receive our heartfelt gratitude in this time of giving thanks. Please continue to guide us through these uncertain times and bring us comfort and hope to those who are experiencing difficulties. In your infinite generosity, please grant us continued graces and blessings throughout the coming year. This we ask in your name. Amen.
Amen. Agenda item number 4, consideration of petitions, applications, appointments, and nominations. Council appointment, council vice president. Our charter requires us to elect a council vice president each December, our first meeting. So may I have a motion?
Council President, I make a motion to nominate Joe Woods for vice president.
Second. May I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you. It's moved and seconded to approve the appointment of council vice president of Mr. Joe Woods. Any discussion? Ms. Dixon?
Mr. President,
Aye.
Mr. Johnson,
Aye.
Mr. Wood,
Aye.
Mr. Giangiordano,
Aye.
Mr. Schroeder,
Aye.
Mr. Wagner,
Aye.
Mr. Beulah.
Aye.
Being 7 votes in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, the motion to approve Councilman Woods to serve as council vice president from December 1st, 2020 through December 2nd, 2021 is hereby approved. Agenda item number 5, special presentations, COVID-19 update. Again, this evening we have Marcy Austin, our acting Harford County Health Officer. Good evening, Marcy.
Good evening, Council President Vincenti and members of the Council, and congratulations, Vice President Woods. I'll start with our Harford County metrics, and they are as follows. Harford County currently has 6,160 cases and 99 confirmed deaths as of today. The first metric is positivity rate. Harford County's positivity rate today is 7.51%. Positivity rates over the past 2 weeks have been averaging 8.56% for Harford County, which is a 25% increase compared to 2 weeks prior. The second metric is new daily cases per 100,000 people. Harford County's new case rate today is 31.43 per 100,000 people. New daily cases over the past 2 weeks have been averaging 39.81 per 100,000 for Harford County, which is an 80% increase compared to 2 weeks prior. The third metric that we've been following is the number of COVID-19 deaths. In the past 2 weeks, there have been 16 new deaths in Harford County compared to 5 deaths 2 weeks prior. This was a 220% increase compared to 2 weeks prior. The fourth metric that we've been following is number of statewide hospitalizations, which has been a major concern across the state. In Maryland, the average number of residents who are currently hospitalized are up 72%. The average number of residents in acute care is up 75%, and the average number of residents in the ICU is up 62% compared to 2 weeks prior. Now, an update on the COVID-19 vaccine and FDA emergency use authorization, which we call EUA, of COVID-19 vaccines. So before FDA can issue an EUA, the Health and Human Services Secretary must declare the circumstances exist justifying the authorization, such as a public health emergency. It appears the FDA may approve Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccine under an EUA approval around December 10th. Moderna is expected to apply for an EUA approval of their vaccine today. The Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices, known as ACIP, is a committee within the CDC that provides advice and guidance on effective control of vaccine-preventable diseases in the U.S. civilian population. At the time of the EUA vaccine approval, the ACIP will provide national guidance on who should be included in COVID-19 vaccine priority groups, and we should be informed soon. However, initially, we just heard this evening that healthcare workers and residents and staff of nursing homes and long-term care facilities are likely part of this priority group so far. The vaccine is expected to arrive in Maryland soon after that, around December 14th. However, we are unsure of the number of doses that will be provided to Maryland. Registering for COVID-19 clinic will begin with priority populations. The CDC is requiring all states to use a software program that will track the use of each vaccine dose. This requires health departments to establish online clinics so recipients can sign up for an appointment time and complete an online consent form. The state of Maryland is using a software program called PrepMod. The online website is marylandvax.org. County organizations who are considered to be a priority population have already been identified. Their contact person will receive a web link to the priority population clinic that will be held specifically for them. The clinic sign-up will not be visible to the general public for the first phase of vaccines. An emergency use authorization fact sheet will be viewable during the registration process to give the person more details about the vaccine, and a hard copy will be provided at the time of vaccination. Proof of vaccination will also be provided as to the date that the second dose is required. The second dose clinic will be advertised to those who have already received the first dose. The second dose must be the same vaccine manufacturer as the first dose. Pfizer will provide the first vaccine that will be available for administration. Pfizer, along with Moderna and AstraZeneca, require that 2 doses be administered approximately 21 days apart for full immunization. In order to receive the Pfizer vaccine, a health department must have 975 vaccine recipients registered for a clinic. This is the number of doses one shipment holds, and therefore all doses must be utilized. The vaccine is shipped on dry ice to maintain a sub-zero temperature. There is already a national shortage of dry ice, and the health department does not own a sub-zero freezer. However, the vaccine can be refrigerated once it is received, but all doses must be used within 5 days. This will require some coordination, and therefore, although Maryland may receive the vaccine, logistical challenges will most likely prevent immediate vaccine administration to all priority groups. Currently, state and local jurisdictions are continuing to plan based on the information released at the federal level. It was recommended by the state that we do not plan for any specific vaccination clinic dates until we are sure of how many doses Maryland will receive. We must allow time for people within the designated priority groups, which have still not been announced to date, completely, I should say, to sign up for the vaccination appointment times once the dates have been set. So now, moving on to a sad note, it was reported today that a 1-year-old child, a little boy, has died of coronavirus in Maryland. No more details have been reported at this time. And on a final note, I hope everyone had a nice Thanksgiving. As we continue moving through the holiday season, let's remain mindful of our actions by wearing masks, following social distancing guidelines, washing our hands frequently, and foregoing large gatherings. Lives are depending on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcy. Council, any questions for Ms. Austin right now? Mr. Giangiordano?
Hi, Marcy. Thank you for the update. Seems like there's still a lot of disagreements about the proper procedures with COVID in different states, about children returning to school, not returning to school. I see New York's flip-flopped a couple times, and now the mayor of New York has put the kids back in school per the CDC guidelines.
Right.
Doesn't seem like we're getting a correct answer or correct on this whole idea. So I know we're getting a lot of parents concerned about, why kids aren't back in school. And I know CDC recommended that the kids should be back in school. Have you heard anything more about that?
So what I know is that the school system uses the guidance that's provided by the Maryland Department of Education and the Maryland Department of Health. And they use the CDC guidelines for 6-foot distancing, for one thing, to the best extent possible, at which, only allows a certain amount of students in the school. But they also use the numbers, the 5% positivity rate and up to 15 cases per 100,000. That's their threshold that they were using. And it so happened on a weekend, I guess a Saturday a few weeks ago, that threshold was hit. And so that's when it was decided to go back to virtual learning. And as we all know, most recently, the numbers are rising even higher than that. So that's the decision in Maryland, or at least in Harford County. And I know all of the other counties are using that same guidance from the Maryland Department of Education and Department of Health.
Okay, thanks. It just seems like I guess all across the country, there's different people are using different things.
Yes, there are very different rules across the country and different philosophies, but that's what's happening here in Maryland.
Thank you.
Sure.
Councilman Johnson?
Thank you, Council President. Marcy, first, I want to thank you so much for your presentations every time we call you in. They're both informational and definitely enlightening. I just want to this isn't a question, this is more of a comment, because I know that you've been given a lot of heat, giving us the numbers and things like that. And, my father, he would tell me about this show called Dragnet and Joe Friday, and it was only like the facts, just give me the facts. And for the the past month and a half, 2 months, however long you've been in this seat, you've been our Joe Friday on this this subject, and I appreciate you and I support you. This is a pandemic that people are finally are sick and tired of. We're almost a year into this, and I understand that people are sick and tired of being cooped up in the house and feeling like people are telling them what to do. But the facts are the facts are the facts. So I do appreciate you coming in here and giving us just the raw data, just the raw facts, and letting everyone know what exactly is going on. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Let me just say, I'm in my 4th month, just so you know. And I'll just keep delivering those facts as long as I can, because you just can't sway from them. So nothing's going to deter me from that. But I really, really appreciate your words. Thank you.
No problem. And not that you're counting 4 months and counting.
Not that I'm counting.
Right.
Would you like to know how many days?
Well, thank you very much.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Mr. Wagner?
If I could, I'd like to know from Marcy if what the length of the span of time that the vaccine, what do they propose that it would be good for? Is it like a vaccine that we had years ago for measles or smallpox and things like that? Or is it something that like a flu shot that has a short lifespan? We have to go back and get it every so often. Do you have any information on that yet?
I don't really have information on that. I think I may have heard that it might be a yearly thing, but I honestly can't answer that, but I can certainly look into it.
I know it's awful new and it's moving fast.
Yeah.
It just be curious to be able to answer people's questions when they do hit you up with that and say, is it something I got to get every year or is it good for my life or what is it,
Yeah,
So if you could, that'd be fine. Thanks. I appreciate that. And we do appreciate all you do for us and all the information you carry back. And after Mr. Ward has done his presentation, I do have 2 questions for either one of you or both when that time comes. So thank you, Marcy.
Thank you, Mr. Wagner. Appreciate that.
Anyone else? Mr. Giordano?
Hi, Marcy. One more question, Marcy. Do we, unfortunately, I know we had some more deaths. Do we know the age range of the people that died, and were any of them in nursing homes? Is there any data available on that?
So we reached out to the state about that because I know that a lot of people have been asking that question, and they're working on something because each health department is trying to figure out how to sort of present that data. And the office, oh gosh, I'm going to forget the name of it down there, who does the contact tracing, they're working on some kind of a platform that we can use to present that information because we know people do want to know. So I can keep you posted on that. I do know that they're developing that.
Okay, thank you. Do you think that more testing is leading to more results? And do you think when these vaccines come out that the general public is going to be able to get it? Or is it, I know you said in lots of 900 and it's very delicate. We don't have sub-zero refrigeration.
Right. So what that means is we've got to, and Lisa Swank, she's the best emergency preparedness person you can have. We've got to do this in 5 days. So she's already starting to plan. We've tapped into school nurses to help us out. So within that 5-day period, we've got to vaccinate that many people. So hopefully that just keeps, we keep getting more, but the general public won't see it happening probably until next year. And I don't know when, but it's not going to be this round or 2.
Okay. What about the increase in testing with more positive results? Is that a direct correlation?
Well, the increase in testing is these folks, even if they weren't tested, they would have been positive. So it's really hard to say, of course, there are going to be more because more people are tested, but there are probably a lot of people walking around asymptomatic as well. So you kind of just think to yourself that anywhere around you could be somebody who's spreading COVID.
Asymptomatic means what for the general public in case they don't know that? Yes,
asymptomatic means you're not having any symptoms of COVID, like loss of taste or fever or those symptoms. So you're asymptomatic means you don't have any symptoms, but you could still be infected with COVID.
And the antibodies stay in your system. Have they figured that out? How long? Like if somebody maybe had COVID 3 months ago and they get an antibody test, they can tell that they had the COVID. Do we know how long that goes back?
No, I don't. I'm not an expert in that area. Probably Lisa would have helped me out, but maybe Colin, after his presentation can help out with that as well. So if we could hold that one.
Okay. Thanks, Marcy. Thanks for all your help. I know the testing's increased. I know we've got some facilities that are open. It still seems that there's been a shortage of the of the rapid testing and some of the providers upcharging for people to get the rapid testing when they travel and they come back. People want to get the rapid testing. They want to get back to work. And that's been a pretty big issue of people trying to get the testing.
And so one of the things about rapid testing is that they're really not that reliable on people who don't have symptoms. So when people come back and they're feeling okay, they may get a false result because of that. So usually the rapids are reserved for people who might be having symptoms. So there's kind of a lot of complexity to this.
Oh, there's a lot of stuff out there.
Yeah.
Thanks for all your help. Thanks for all your information. It's just, it's a lot, and just trying to stay informed and on top of it. And I appreciate all your efforts. Thank you.
I know. Thank you.
Marcy, if you would just hang on a second, I'm going to bring Colin Ward into the conversation real quick. Good evening, Colin. How are you?
I think Councilman Beulah has a question for Marcy.
We're going to hold Councilman Beulah's question just for a minute. You go right ahead, Mr. Ward.
Okay. Thank you, Council President Vincente and members of the County Council. At Upper Chesapeake Health, we've experienced a steady case of confirmed COVID positive patients, as well as a group of patients with respiratory symptoms that require the same precautions and workup. In the initial surge, the most COVID positive patients that were hospitalized in a single day at Hartford Memorial Hospital and at Upper Chesapeake Medical Center was 34 combined. With the community spread in November, we've seen our daily COVID census dramatically outpace the springtime surge. It's not common for there to be more than 50 COVID positive patients combined between the two locations on a given day. We continue to operate 3 COVID cohort locations, 1 at Hartford Memorial and 2 at Upper Chesapeake Medical Center, and have also outfitted other hospital units and rooms with negative pressure filtration systems to create additional locations to accommodate COVID patients. With the recent increase in community prevalence, we have been additionally challenged with staffing shortages associated with the quarantine requirements due to a close contact with a COVID positive patient in the community or from a team member's own COVID positive status. This phenomena is new to the second surge and was not as much of a challenge in the spring. Maintaining staffing required to meet this increase is a significant challenge and will likely remain so for some time. Thus, we revisit our daily labor and surge plans in keeping with the governor's announcement earlier today. As we previously reported, we continue to monitor and calibrate the daily surgical schedule in keeping with the state's recent guidance. It should be noted that the surgical teams have displayed amazing flexibility to meet the clinical needs of the patient while maneuvering within the capacity constraints of the hospital. Thus far, we've been able to maintain the outpatient surgical schedule while managing the inpatient cases to within 85% of historical volume. This is important work as the team attempts to address any medical issues which may have been delayed previously during the pandemic. Last week, we implemented important visitor restrictions to limit the possible COVID spread here at the hospitals. There are exceptions, of course, to this policy for certain events such as births, end-of-life events, those that are pediatric patients, and those with disabilities. Later this week, we will implement a new University of Maryland Medical System guideline for daily use of new procedure masks and mandatory eye protection, which would include face shields and goggles, but standard eyeglasses would not meet this criteria. The goal is to eliminate an entry point for the virus through the top or sides of glasses, and it should be noted that our caregivers have used this protective equipment throughout the pandemic, but the new policy would be expanded to govern those working in non-clinical areas as well. This week, we expanded our COVID testing capacity for community members. First, we migrated the pre-surgical testing from the Aberdeen testing location to the Upper Chesapeake Medical Center campus. This freed up approximately 250 slots for symptomatic community members tested in Aberdeen. Additionally, we added 1 4-hour session on Tuesdays. This will combine increase our weekly testing capacity for sick or concerned community members between 750 and 1,000 with availability now on 5 days per week. Although the second spike has been more intense, our team is generally in good spirits despite the uncertainty of future case volume. Our nurses, doctors, and care teams continue to answer the call to care for our neighbors in the community. The team is hopeful the vaccine will help provide some relief in the near future, and we will work closely with Marcy and the Harford County Health Department, as well as the UMMS Incident Command, to support a vaccination effort in any way that we can. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Colin. Appreciate it very much. Councilman Beulah?
Yes, I just had a question for Marcy. You stated, and thank you for all your reports and factual information, Marcy. But you said at this point in time, I believe that the county has no zero refrigeration.
The below zero refrigeration that's
Right.
needed for that particular, yes, that's correct. But the vaccines can be kept in the refrigerator for 5 days. That's why we have to get them out so quickly with those clinics.
Okay. So if we had below zero refrigeration, the vaccine could be stored longer.
Yes. Yes.
So is there any plans for the health department or the county to purchase any type of zero refrigeration units or system?
I'm pretty sure Lisa has checked into that, and I'm actually going to ask Colin too. Colin, you don't have that refrigeration over at the hospital, do you?
So we are in the process of renting minus 80-degree freezers. They are very difficult to come by at this point, but for sure we'll work with the health department to see if there's the capacity for us to store any of the vaccines.
Okay, it just seems like that would be. It just seems like that would be a good move instead of just trying to rush to use the vaccine in just 5 days. You know, that could create problems. And then if we have, you know, a shortage of vaccine, and then we have vaccines that go bad because, you know, they're, you know, shall we say 7 days, they're out of date or something. So, okay, just wanted to see if we were looking into that and putting some kind of plan to get some type of below zero refrigeration here in the county.
Yes, thank you. We'll work together with Colin on that. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Council, anyone else? All right, at this time, I appreciate you guys very much. Mr. Wagner?
We have those two questions that I had stated earlier. Just curious, has the testing been so vigorous and been so encouraged that the supply of testing supplies is being diminished or could possibly be in short supply in the near future?
I'll take that one, Marcy. So I think there's a couple of factors that are influencing our capacity on the testing. This time, it's not really related to the cotton swabs and the reagents that were problematic earlier in the pandemic. It's more related to the ability of the appropriate clinical person to collect the specimen and maintain custody and get it to the lab for processing. We have been relying on our community health team pretty much since March 13th to collect these specimens. Sometimes school nurses are also filling in those positions. So it's more the availability of the clinical staff to be able to collect the specimens. What's driving it, I think you're hinting at several factors. People returning from out-of-state travel, students returning from college want to get tested as they assimilate back. And then there's some, I would say there's some community confusion about what a close contact is. You know, so if you've been close to a known COVID positive patient, how close were you? How long was the duration of your contact? And a lot of employers are just saying, well, if you were in the same room, go get tested before you come back to work. So there is a bit more methodical approach to determine whether you need that test. In any event, if the person signs up for the Aberdeen testing site, we will test them whether they are symptomatic or not, because we know that there are so many people that are asymptomatic that have it.
I appreciate that, and you just fell into the next question. Actually, I'm trying to put in my mind after we've been involved in this for as long as we have been trying to figure it out, and you hit it, because certainly people traveling, either getting ready to travel or already have traveled, they're all typical people to get tested. But if you're showing no symptoms, and maybe you were, well, who knows, you were in a Walmart, a big box store, you were somewhere, and we're all in, out and around, and people are somewhere close by and in close proximity, but you still show no symptoms, yet there's some reason that you feel the need to go get tested. The results of that test, what good will they do you or serve you if you're not showing symptoms? You're not going to be able to get any medication prematurely before symptoms show up. The only thing you're doing is noting that you're positive in your test, and then you stay away from or try to quarantine or whatever. But then the next test 2 days later could show you're negative. Am I on the right track here a little bit or not?
Well, I think one thing that was clear at the beginning, there was much greater challenge with getting the testing supplies available to one that wanted to get a test. And so what happened was, if you thought you had been exposed, absent the test because they were difficult to have, you just quarantined at home for whatever the timing was. It could be 7 and 14 days. And then if you never developed symptoms, the CDC had recommendations about how many days since the suspected exposure and how many days if you had symptoms, if you were symptom free. And so now I think what's happened is people have they have returned to sort of previous, pre-pandemic life, and they want to be tested to know their status definitively before they do something. So that might mean before they go back to work, where their employer is requiring them to know their status definitively. And that's what having some of that additional testing. But you're right, the test is only as good. It's a snapshot in time. So either you have the virus asymptomatically and the test may be negative after a known exposure because it hasn't had time to what they call cook yet. Or alternatively, you don't have it, and you take the test, it shows you don't have it, and you're exposed 20 minutes later, and so you'd be relying on a test that is then out of date.
Right. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mr. Giordano?
Good evening. Good evening, Kyle. Thank you very much. I think the question I asked Marcy earlier was, I don't remember that, but do we know definitively if this, I saw some reports that this might have been around since December, and then I guess the testing that's done now does not include the antibody test to see if you had it once before. They're just testing to see if you currently have it, correct?
Yeah, so I'll preface my answer with a disclaimer that I'm not a physician, but
Okay.
there are blood tests to check for antibodies, and then there's a PCR test, which is the gold standard for whether you have the current virus, and then there is an antigen test, which is the test that is considered the rapid test and has a little bit higher false positivity rate. So the antibody would tell you theoretically if you've had COVID maybe a month and a half ago, have you built up antibodies to that test? Whereas the other two will tell you if the virus is active in your system.
Do we know if you've had COVID? How long will you get it again, or they still don't know the answer to that? Is it 6 months? If somebody got COVID, can they catch it again in 6 months? And what about the question about going back? I read somewhere that they thought it was around back in December.
Yeah, I can't speak to that. I haven't seen any of the literature about when it came to the U.S. definitive. I can also tell you that it's unknown, based on the conversations we've had with our infectious disease folks, how long, if you were exposed in the summer, how long your protection antibodies would give you protection. So they don't know if that's 90 days or 6 months or longer protection. And also there are mutations of the virus. So I think there's at least one documented case in Nevada where a person early on got COVID and then just a few months ago got a different variation of COVID. But that is not a common theme to have repeat COVID infections at this point.
Thank you very much, Colin.
Councilman Beulah?
Yes, Colin, thank you for your presentation. Along the lines of testing and treatment, and I know you put the disclaimer out there that you're not a doctor, so I don't know if you're going to be able to answer this question. Person tests positive for COVID. They're asymptomatic. Why are they going to be treated? To my understanding, you're not going to be treated until you have severe symptoms. Why?
Well, that's right. So the idea here is that we're doing something about the symptom because the virus will run its course on its own at some point. So if you don't develop any symptoms, there's nothing to treat. And quarantining at home is more about providing protection to your loved ones or those in the community that you come into contact with on a daily basis.
Okay, Colin, I don't know. That just doesn't quite seem right to me. I mean, everything from a cold to cancer, if you test positive, they usually have, even if you're taking some off the shelf medication for a cold. But here we get COVID and it said, okay, until you really get bad, we're not going to treat it. And we let the symptoms go to a certain point, and then we start treating it. I mean, it makes sense to me that the earlier we treat it, the more likely a person is to survive.
Well, so
it's just mildly treated.
Let me just clarify my response. So asymptomatic would mean you are showing no symptoms. So you don't have a cough or fever or muscle aches or any of the associated symptoms with COVID. Once you become symptomatic, so you have a fever, maybe you have a runny nose, those would still be minor symptoms and likely are not going to require you to come to the hospital. The issue begins to, from what I've been told from our experts here, is that when you have oxygen saturation levels that begin to decline, and that's when we typically see patients that come to the emergency department and are admitted, and we are certainly aggressively treating those patients.
Okay, thank you for your answer.
Anyone else? Colin, when we recently talked, and you added the 400 slots in Aberdeen, that's taking us up to about 3,000 a week. Is that what I understood you to say?
It's approximately 1,000 per week now.
1,000 at Upper Chesapeake, but I mean total all over. Is it like 3,000 per week in Harford County?
I don't know the answer beyond the Aberdeen testing site.
Okay. Marcy, can you add to that?
Yes, I don't think we can know that because we have all these express cares and patient first doing the testing, so we wouldn't know their count.
Okay. All right, well, I thank you both for, I'm sorry.
Council
Councilor
President.
Johnson. Yep.
Yes, Council President. So let's be clear here. So we're only getting Upper Chesapeake numbers. We're not getting a total look of the entire county.
Do you mean when Colin and I report the testing numbers?
Correct.
Is that what you mean? Because we're
Yes, ma'am.
So yes, we're reporting for Aberdeen. We're reporting for the grant that we hold and in cooperation with the hospital. We're reporting on those numbers.
So the numbers could be exponentially higher in Harford County, but we're only getting Upper Chesapeake numbers. Am I correct when I say that?
Oh, you mean the numbers that I report? No, they're total numbers from the state. But we
Okay.
don't. I don't know how to explain that. That we don't track the other people who are doing the testing. You don't do that either, do you, Colin?
You wouldn't have access to that information.
And I think that I could potentially find that on the from MDH, from the Maryland Department of Health. I could probably find that out for you.
So Marcy, so do the Express Cares and let's say Patient First or whatever the case may be, do they all have to report their numbers to the state?
Yes, all the test results go into a system called Immunet. So all the results go into that. So they're counting the total results. And that's why I'm saying I may be able to get that information for you from the state.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you.
That state system. Yep.
All right.
Anyone else? Marcy, Colin, I thank you for your reports tonight. Appreciate it.
Sure. Thank you.
Agenda item 6, approval of minutes, legislative day 20-030, November 17th, 2020. Are there any corrections to the minutes? There being no corrections to the minutes, they stand approved. Agenda item number 7, introduction and consideration of resolutions. Councilman, would you please read in resolution 028-20?
Thank you, Mr. President. Resolution 028-20, pilot agreement, Windsor Valley 3 Apartments, introduced by Council President Vincenti at the request of the County Executive. A resolution of the County Council of Harford County, Maryland, approving the execution by the County Executive of an agreement for payment in lieu of taxes, the pilot agreement, with WV3 Housing Associates, LP, a copy of which is attached hereto and incorporated herein by reference. Resolution 028-20 has a public hearing scheduled for January 5th, 2021 at 7 p.m.
Thank you, Mr. Woods. Agenda item number 8, introduction of bills. Bill 20-034. Mr. Woods, would you please read that into the record?
Thank you, Mr. President. Bill 20-034, appropriation FY 2021, other post-employment benefits, introduced by Council President Vincenti at the request of the County Executive. An act to make an appropriation of funds from the General Fund, the Highways Fund, Parks and Recreation Fund, and Watershed Management Fund, and the Water and Sewer Fund for the current fiscal year, provide for additional budgetary authority to maintain sufficient funding to cover estimated expenses for other post-employment benefits in FY 2021. Introduced, read first time, order posted, and public hearing is scheduled for January 5th, 2021 at 7 o'clock p.m. with a location to be determined.
Thank you, Mr. Woods. Agenda item number 9, call for final reading of bills. Council, may I have general consent to move bills 20-019 through 20-033 together? Thank you. Again, bills 20-019 through 20-033. May I have a motion? Mr. Schroeder.
Council President, I make a motion for the approval of agricultural preservation bills 20-019 through 20-033.
May I have a second? Thank you, Mr. Woods. It's moved and seconded to approve bills 20-019 through 20-033. Is there any discussion? Mr. Giangiordano.
Thank you, Council President. I know the ag program has been a fantastic program. It's helped preserve a lot of land, but I feel that we need to reevaluate the current system of evaluating the farms. We need to revisit the grading system when it comes to evaluating the lands that apply. And we also need to look at the permitted use of the lands once they are in the program, as well as the proximity of growth around those farms to make sure that there is development encroaching on those properties.
Thank you, Mr. Giangiordano. Anyone else? Mr. Wagner.
I appreciate Councilman Giordano's statements about it, because I feel the same way. My previous comments at the public hearing may have been a little bit misconstrued by those that heard them, thinking or taking from what I said that I was opposed to ag land preservation, which is not the truth at all. What I'm opposed to is what it's developed into and how it's being processed now. It should be an autonomous board that has no influence from any other sources other than to look at the soil types and the productivity and the endangering of that parcel from encroaching development on it, which was one of the reasons back in the 90s when it was first developed. That was one of the things that we took into consideration was development pressure. Some of these properties, with the lack of development rights and with the lack of development around it, and certainly with the lack of water and sewer or other infrastructure, there really isn't any drive to develop those properties more than what we saw on our sheets. You're spending a lot of money here for these parcels that at most nearing 100 development parcels, 100 lots at most. So, I think we need to take a real concerted effort and try to work up some kind of a new way of doing it in the future before we see any more ag preservation parcels come before us, so that we have something else in place that's a different criteria than what we have for these. I had considered voting against some of these at the time after the hearing, but at the same time, that would be wrong because this is the criteria we have in place now. They played by the rules. They were evaluated by the board, and it would be wrong for us to come back now and say, you know what, we don't like the rules. Well, that's not where we are. But we shouldn't be looking to, it should be the productive farmland is what it should be, not just open space. Forested areas should be looked at a little bit differently. Marginal soil types need to be looked at a little bit differently. So, there's some things that I think we need to take a good hard look at as a board that approves these or doesn't approve these before we see any more come before us. And I appreciate Councilman Jan Giordano's statements that he feels the same way. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wagner. Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Council President. I can concur with my two colleagues here. We definitely have to take a look at the agricultural preservation program in its totality. Like Councilman Wagner said, I too was going to vote against the majority of these bills. However, just like he said, this is the standard right now that everyone was going by, and it would be unfair for us at this time to vote against something that's already the law of the land. So with that being said, this council needs to really take a look at this program and revisit it in its totality. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. I've always said that I believe one of the greatest things about Harford County is its open green space and its ag heritage. So I stand behind my comments that Mr. Whaling called me out on. I still believe that we can do our best to preserve farms and open space all across the county, not just in particular places. And the latest purchase of Bellevue Farm is a prime example of that. Although it may be difficult for some of our citizens to get out there and have access to it, but I do believe it's a great program and look forward to supporting it. And with that, Ms. Dixon.
Mr. President,
Aye.
Mr. Johnson,
Aye.
Mr. Woods,
Aye.
Mr. Giangiordano,
Aye.
Mr. Schroeds,
Aye.
Mr. Wagner,
Aye.
Mr. Viola.
Aye.
There being 7 votes in the affirmative and 0 in the negative, bills 20-019 through 20-033 are hereby approved. Agenda item number 10, enrollment of bills. The enrolled copy of bills 20-019 through 20-033 is certified as being the text finally passed. Agenda item number 11, Hartford Community College letter of support for financial support for workforce training. The council, again, may I have general consent to send this letter on behalf of the council to support Hartford Community College for financial support for workforce training. You should all have a copy in your packet. Everyone okay with that? Thank you. Agenda item number 12, business from the president. First of all, let me say it's been a long day here at the council chambers. I want to thank our IT department, Brian Sills, Ms. Dixon and Ms. Harris for all they did to kind of keep us up to speed with all the technical difficulties that we had going on today. So I appreciate all your support, appreciate your work. I want to go ahead and advertise the adequate public facilities meeting, December 16th, 6 p.m. through a virtual format. Details for the public to participate will be listed on the county website and calendar. I guess, again, I'm going to say one of the other great components that we have in Hartford County, which makes it an amazing place to live, is all the nonprofits and the willingness of our citizens to give back. One of the examples of that we had a chance to visit this past week was the sharing table at Prince of Peace Church in Edgewood. Had an outstanding day there working with Wendy Wyatt and the Dang sisters. We served 297 meals and bagged 179 bags of groceries for the citizens there. And then Thanksgiving Day and the week of, I had the opportunity to work with the Community Projects of Harvard Grace, formerly known as the Smiles Group, to help them put on their 32nd annual Thanksgiving dinner. And we served over 1,500 meals that day. They were prepared, picked up, and delivered. I had the opportunity to work in the kitchen with an amazing group of people, and I want to give a shout out to, obviously, Don Osmond, one of the organizers, Bruce Clark from the Larapin, Margie Coakley and Willie Norrie from Coakley's, Chris Scarlato, Rodney and Luann Swam, Chip Paradis, and so many others. Just a tremendous large group of volunteers for that one-day event, 250 to 300 volunteers. And I got to give a shout out to Dave Lynch and his family for the outstanding work that they did in the parking lot, delivering the meals to those folks, along with Dawn Boland, Mike Armstrong, Chad Tate, and Greg Long. Just a great group of volunteers, and I just named a few. So I want to recommend to all of our citizens, if you have an opportunity to volunteer with a nonprofit, please do so. It's a great way to give back. And with that, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Council President. So I want to, send my deepest condolences to you and your family for the loss. I know your loved one is going to be truly missed in your family, so I send out, my deepest condolences. Over the past week, during the Thanksgiving holiday, I had the absolute pleasure of working alongside some business leaders in the community, Trooper Cooper at Best Choice Driving School, Jason Bennett of J Properties, Adam Swallow of the law firm of Adam Swallow, and many others. Prince of Peace Church down in my district. Adam Swallow and his lovely wife had a vision of giving back to the community, and he allowed me to help him with his vision of giving back to the community. So we all got together and decided that we were going to locate 10 needy families and give them fresh turkeys from Richardson's farm, sides, the whole 9 yards. And it was truly a blessing, just seeing the smiles on not only the adults' face, but also the kids' face as well. So I really appreciate that. I could tell you this, that my district is in full bloom, just like the council president said, that there are many nonprofits in the area, to include the ones in my district that are definitely out there doing great things. I don't have time to mention them all, but we were all out there over the Thanksgiving holiday, giving back to the community. And, it just warms my heart and my spirit to see that, even in these times with, this unprecedented pandemic, that folks still have the heart to give back to the community. So I want to thank all the folks out there that took the time to give back to the community. And finally, I want to say congratulations to Harford County's own Emmanuel Quickly. He was a first-round draft pick for the New York Knicks in this NBA's draft. He's from the 40 corridor. He went to Kentucky. He was an outstanding basketball player at Kentucky, and he was drafted in the first round to the New York Knicks. I'm not a Knicks fan. I know Councilman Tony G may be a Knicks fan, but I'm not a Knicks fan. I'm sorry. I'm a Wizards fan. So, but yeah, you're definitely gonna have a great player up there in the New York City area, and he's just a wonderful kid. His family is definitely grounded, and we don't get many athletes that come out of Harford County, and when we do have athletes that come out of Harford County that make it to that 1% to the professional ranks, we need to go ahead and put them out there and show all the youngsters that are coming up behind them that anything is possible. So with that being said, Council President, I'll yield my time back.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Mr. Woods.
Thank you, Mr. President. Council, first, just want to thank you for another year of Vice President. I guess it's a good time, but I assume nobody else wants it because I tried, but hey, what can you do? But thank you for that support. And also, just a little bit more about the proposed Dollar General store in the Folsom area. Just a reminder that the virtual community input meeting is scheduled via a Zoom meeting. It's going to be scheduled for 12/3/2020 at 6 p.m. So that's Thursday. And the Zoom meeting ID is 893-6574-3779. And once again, we'll post it and have it available if anybody wants that. Hoping a lot of people attend that meeting. Remember, the community input meeting is put on by the developer. It's a requirement of the county, but it is put on by the developer, and it's to provide feedback to the developer and them to give the community an idea of what they have in mind. So I'm hoping a lot of people take part of that and give them feedback. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Woods. Mr. Giangiordano.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening, everybody. I hope everybody had a safe Thanksgiving, and look forward to another holiday coming up, and best wishes for that. I just want to make sure that everybody knows There's still some grant money available out there. As I understand, this December, they're going to start issuing out money for the people that have already applied and received grant money. And then I know from the restaurants, there's a pool of funds. So whoever submits they were going to contact them, I guess, ask them a couple of questions, and then they were going to submit that out to all the restaurants that applied. So just want to make sure if anybody's got any questions, please contact our office. Be more than happy to help. So thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Giangiordano. Mr. Schroeds.
Thank you, Council President. Just hope everyone had a nice Thanksgiving. I know this was a different kind of year for everyone, but hopefully you enjoyed it, and it was nice hearing what you did over the weekend, Mr. Vincenti. Also, we lost recently we lost Norma Reeves. I know many of you know her. I know myself as a councilman that she definitely would keep me straight, and it was good news if you hadn't heard from her in a while, because she would definitely let you know. But we'll definitely miss her. Also, condolences to you with your loss too, Mr. Vincenti, and your family. We talked a lot about our nonprofits. Well, today is Giving Tuesday. So, get out your checkbooks and donate financially to your favorite group. I would like to promote the Mason-Dixon Community Services Organization up in Street. They just do tremendous work. Folks struggling with food, poverty, fuel help. I can't tell you all the things that they do. This is the same organization that myself and my daughter Maddie and some of my niece and my nephew helped me delivering food during the pandemic. But so I encourage you to. That's primarily the only group in Northern Harford County. So if you want to give up in that neck of the woods, that's a great organization. But there are others. It is Giving Tuesday, so just wanted to get that out there. Also, keep my daughter in your thoughts and prayers. She does have her brace off now, but she has a long road to recovery with physical therapy, and we'll just see how it goes. We're just going to try our best, but she has lost a lot of movement in her arm from injuring her elbow. So please think about her. And just like all the other kids around the country and in Harford County, she is, really missing out on her 5th grade year. So it's been a really tough one for her with her injury and not being at school with her teachers and friends and just being engaged like that. It's so important for young people. And I just really pray that we get back to some kind of normal, especially for our younger ones. So anyway, that's all I have tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schroeds. Mr. Wagner.
I too would like to convey sympathy to the Vincenti family on their loss, and also to the Reeves family for the passing of Norma Reeves. She was certainly a staple around Harford County for many, many years. And as a council person, as Chad said, if there was something that she wanted to let you know about, you clearly had a clear understanding by the time she got done telling you what it was she wanted you to do. And you best heed what she said. So she will be missed, but she's rejoined with her husband, and we wish the family the very best and extend our sympathy to them. With that, I'm done.
Thank you, Mr. Wagner. Mr. Bueller.
Yes, thank you, Council President. Jean and I would like to extend our deepest condolences to you and your family on the loss of your loved one. And I also would like to just thank all the amazing volunteers, the faith-based community that came out and made sure that as many people as possible in Harford County had a Thanksgiving and had something to be thankful for. And they don't just do it Thanksgiving, they do it year round. And I've always felt that Harford County just had an amazing group of people that volunteer and not only give of their money, but they give of their time, and they do it passionately. So to all those who passed out meals and turkeys and just made sure that everybody had a happy Thanksgiving, thank you so much for serving the community. Thank you. And with that, thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Buell, and you made a good point. I gotta give a shout out to Mr. Fred Sills and Julie Runnicky and Havre Grace, because
Yes.
just because Thanksgiving was Thursday, they started Friday preparing for next year's Thanksgiving dinner. So you're correct. It is a year-round job, no doubt. Thank you again. Agenda item number 14, comments and input from attending citizens. Ms. Dixon, do we have anyone signed up?
Yes, Mr. President, we have 8 this evening. Our first speaker is John Malamo, followed Josh Kaziol.
Before we get started, I would just remind everyone that we have a 3-minute timeline, and I would ask everyone to please respect that so that we can have everyone move through in an efficient manner and get their point across and their comments heard. And with that, call our first caller.
Malamo.
Good evening, sir. It's Council President Vincenti. Could you give your name and address for the record, please?
Sure. Good evening to you and your colleagues. John P. Malamo, 2402 Eagle View Drive. Continuing on. From our discussion, we see that by code, the commercial operation includes the approach and landing pads of an airport. By CFR 91.119, we determine that aircraft may fly below the minimum safe altitude only for landing or taking off, and then only in the traffic pattern. The RNAV GPS approach and landing path extends beyond the boundaries of the Harford County Airport. From our discussion, we determined that the location of the traffic pattern is determined by the pilot. The approach begins when aircraft descends below the applicable minimum safe operating altitude, and that the entire traffic pattern may be used for approach and landing. From Exhibit 27, we see the resultant area of the traffic pattern at the Harford County Airport is approximately 3,400 acres over multiple surrounding properties, most of which is in the Ag District, some in the B2, B3, and RR districts, and very minimally some in the GI District. In testimony before the Zoning Board of Appeals, a representative from the Planning and Zoning Department replied in response to a question on the use of property not belonging to the Harford County Airport Owners Group, and quoting from Zoning Case 5814 transcript, page 374, line 12 through 13, I am not sure we can approve access across the property that is not part of this application. Recalling from our review of the DAC transcript, airport operations are clearly limited to the property at 3538 Aldina Road. Access to airspace and land area of surrounding property owners was never presented as part of the project, nor considered by the Department of Planning and Zoning or the Zoning Board of Appeals. There was no approval from the Planning and Zoning Department nor the Zoning Board of Appeals for use of surrounding properties or for the approach and landing paths of the Harford County Airport. In fact, the statement from the representative from Planning and Zoning specifically prohibited that use. Neither did the Circuit Court of Harford County permit the use of property not owned by the airport and clothing. Pursuant to the Harford County Zoning Code, no more than 50% of the Harford Airport operation can be in the Ag District. The hearing examiner found, based on the testimony of 2 other experts, that 38% of the total operation would be in the Ag District and 62% in the GI District. The hearing examiner based his finding on Exhibit 29, which comprised only 157 acres within. Gentlemen, I know you multitask in order to complete your jobs during the time that's allotted, but I'd appreciate it if you would stop writing and pay attention to what I'm saying. Thank you.
Have a great night.
Within the airport property, one of the witnesses was a representative from the MAA who testified, and quoting, page 193, line 3 through 7. We cannot change airspace. We cannot change rules for pilots or rules for aircraft. What we look is what is our control area, what is in our influence area, and that is infrastructure. The other was an expert aviation planner. In testimony describing the traffic pattern, Exhibit 27, the airport, the expert aviation planner testified, page 275, line 12 to 17, when discussing traffic pattern and quoting, "I didn't have time to count up the properties, but you know
Mr.
these
Malama,
patterns."
bring your comments to a close, please.
Yes, sir, I have two more sentences. Are superimposed on our property map. You can see what I consider to be a considerate reduction in the number of properties that are overflown within the free runway system versus the consolidated one runway system. Now, gentlemen, are the code requirements met? Good night.
Good night.
Hello?
Good evening, sir. If you give your name and address for the record, please. It's Council President Vincenti.
Hi, yes, sir. Thank you for giving me the time and opportunity to speak. My name is Josh Kozel, 1106 Emerald Drive, Bel Air, Maryland.
Continue, sir.
Okay, thank you. I'm a lifelong Harco resident, 38 years in January. I'm proud to call Harco my home. This county is amazing, just like our country. We have smart, amazing people with great pride and a sense of community unlike any other. I say this for my proud memories, but recently and looking forward, our memories will not be the same. 3 key topics that are keeping Harford County from being the great place it is known for. First, I make these comments to you knowing that you do not have the oversight and cannot change everything, but your leadership or lack thereof will be a deciding factor on how great our county will be and will remain. Our county is being destroyed, not by COVID, but by continuing to restrict or support restrictions to our great citizens. I ask that you stand up with your constituents, rejecting more oversight. Let us be free. Let our county grow, heal, guide, and most importantly, keep our freedoms. It is time to do whatever you can to help this county. To each of you, what will the future of our county look like? And what are you doing about it? Be brave, courageous, and proud. Stop allowing our liberty and freedom to be taken away. Secondly, I want to be very clear that I understand that this virus is real and dangerous to some. I wanted to address the merry-go-round that is called our local health department. The information you provide is vague, and all of your work seems to be in the effort to restrict people, especially our children. You say you monitor all the data, but fail to mention or highlight CFR, case fatality rate. From research by Matthew McBride, the CFR continues to drop, and I would invite you to do your own math and test it out. We all know why the positive cases are going up, and that is because you require unneeded testing for people to maintain their freedoms and aspire for a bit of a normalcy. What type of people or cases are you recommending being hospitalized? Here's a quick review of the CFR. June, the first true surge, 5.14%. July, the supposed second surge, 4.15%. And in November, supposedly the largest surge yet, on the 11th was 2.3%, and the 30th it was 1.99%. Additionally, can you please provide for your professional insight into why my mother, who is 56-year-old, suffering from cystic fibrosis and an immune deficiency disorder that requires her to give herself IgG transfusions every other week, and her husband, who is over 60 with a heart aneurysm, can test positive and not require a hospital, ICU, or ventilator, just suffer from a fever, headache, and loss of taste? Lastly, how can this great county be falling so far behind so quickly with regard to the public school system? Talk about another merry-go-round, or this actually might be an entire circus. The system and its leadership are a joke. They do not want to work with the community and are rather degrading in their remarks, especially the board. They would rather ride in the passenger seat on our children's journey through the educational system without providing leadership, guidance, or most importantly, effort to do what is right for our children. Something is better than nothing will not cut it. Also, we do not agree with the supporting of the blanket grading system, which we just experienced this last marking period. To group all students together instead of looking at what they excel or need improvement in is a disservice. I am all for consistency amongst the school, but I am not for consistency amongst a consistent student. A 93% is not the same as a 40 to 80%. The school system to me is the most shameful because these students cannot fend for themselves. Whether the child is gifted or not, they need and want to be in school, they need and want to learn, and they need and want to socialize. Thank you again for your time, and please do what is right for our community. Again, you might not be able to directly affect everything, but this is what is going on in your county. If you need anything, please just reach out.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you
President.
again.
Thank you.
Our next two speakers are Jill Ferreira and Giovanni Giovanni Rafera, sorry about that.
Hello.
Good evening, ma'am. It's Council President Vincenti. Can I have your name and address for the record?
Yes, it's Jill Ferrara, 2000 Garden Drive, Forestville. I'm sorry, I'm hearing a ringing.
That's from.
Hello?
Good evening, ma'am.
Oh, bear with me. There we go. Sorry, I thought I muted it. I apologize.
That's okay. Go ahead.
Okay, Jill Ferrara, 2000 Garden Drive. First, I do want to say I am a little bit more impressed with the amount of questioning that you guys asked Ms. Austin tonight. So I will give some kudos to you tonight. But moving on, I'm going to speak about alarming concerns I have about Harford County's Harford County's data reporting regarding COVID. On Wednesday, November 11th, I checked the Maryland coronavirus nursing home data. It was reported on that day that Citizens Care and Habitat Rate had 28 staff cases, 27 resident cases, and 7 resident deaths. But on November 14th, when I went to show this to a friend, strangely, all the data had been changed for this nursing facility. Suddenly, there were only 9 staff cases, 6 resident cases, and all deaths were removed. Under normal circumstances, I would understand it could have been a reporting error. But given the fact that Harford County has refused to give a breakdown of age demographics of deaths with COVID, along with other information requested, I cannot trust this to be the case. Especially since I recently discovered that Harford County is reporting that Bel Air Health and Rehab has 16 resident deaths, but ProPublica, which gets its information from the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, is reporting 20 resident deaths. And Forestville Health and Rehab is reporting 12 resident deaths, but ProPublica has it at 14. Where is this? Why is there a discrepancy between Medicare and Medicaid services and Harford County's reporting? You know, I found it quite odd that we haven't seen a reported death from a nursing facility in months. So I must ask, what is it that you are trying to hide? Could it be utter incompetence and failure of our county government and their appointed officials? How are any Harford County residents supposed to trust the decisions you say you are making on our behalf when you are lying and hiding information from your citizens? Remember, you work for us and we are demanding this information to be made publicly available with full disclosure. Every one of you seem to be more concerned about your election campaign and those of your colleagues than the citizens you represent. Remember, without us, you are nothing. Now, I'm going to give the rest of my time to my son. Please be patient with him as he is very nervous.
Will do, ma'am. Will do.
Thank you. Good evening. And
good evening. My name is Giovanni Ferrara of 2000 Garden Drive.
Good evening, sir.
Last week, Ms. Austin spoke about a 27-year-old who passed away with COVID. Tonight, I would like to read you a part of an email I received from the principal of my high school and a letter
We lose the feed?
Looks like you're up, Rob.
No, it looks like we're back on, gentlemen. It appears we may have had a glitch in the system. I'm gonna go back on mute, and if everybody can mute their mics.
Me happy and kept me going. If you were in here, thank you so much. Even if you're not in here, I still thank you for being a part of my journey, and I appreciate that. 63 out. These are the last words he would ever write and that anyone would see. I would also like to point out that most of his pictures were from school/school sports. And this is the email from my principal. Dear Tech Community. So, within a month, I have to share that another Cobra, a graduate from the 2020 class, tragically passed away this weekend. Brandon was a cybersecurity student attending Bridgewater University. He was an outstanding young man, and he will be sorely missed. As the principal of HCHS and the person charged to protect your children while attending tech, this is devastating news, but I refuse to send another email that just says we are sorry. Mr. Collins. Mental health is hard enough as a kid while trying to find your place in this world, but even harder now. We keep hearing this is temporary, but the effects of social isolation are long lasting. School absence can result in completely losing touch with friends and losing our entire network or social network, which puts us at higher risk for mental disorders like severe depression, lower self-esteem, increased anxiety, and suicidal tendencies. As a student, I feel the effects of the lockdown and not being in school. I often find myself sad and lonely and not being able to see my friends on a daily basis. I don't get to have normal social interactions in a group in class with group project class assignments in the hallway or at lunch. My sadness and loneliness is nothing compared to what kids who already have mental illnesses are feeling. I wish I could see my friends face to face and actually be able to check in on my friends and make sure they're okay. I am asking you to please do something to get us back in school so we can all be there for each other and prevent something like this from happening again.
Giovanni, thank you for your comments.
You're welcome. And thank you.
Our next two speakers are David Ferreira and Kim Novak.
Hello.
Good evening, sir. It's Council President Vincenti. May I have your name and address for the record?
Sure. It's David, 2000 Garden. One comment before I start, though. First, after we have pushed you for weeks, you are finally asking some better questions. So I do say thank you for that. Just that it took us pushing you into it and 9 to 10 months until you did start at. But here we go. Here we are again. You all have been repeatedly asked a series of questions. Not one of you have made any attempt to answer these, except for today. Shows your character as well as your lack of respect for the citizens of Harford County. Now, I may be ignorant to how these meetings are conducted, but I know in the real world, if my boss asked me questions and I refused to answer or even tried, I would be fired. Several weeks, I and many others sit listening to an hour or more about who will or will not build in a certain area of the county. I'm appalled that that sort of item gets as much time as it needs, as well as back and forth question and answer. Well, today I'm giving you that chance, and I expect answers as well as equal time as I and many, many others feel these questions are as deserving, if not more deserving. Number one, why is it okay for all of you to hold events to raise money for your campaigns, but you can't show up in person to face us? Why have you not been? I don't know what that is.
It's a fire alarm, but keep going.
What is that? Is that you or me?
Yeah, it's here in the building. Go ahead with your comments.
Why have you not been able to provide the requested info on the health department numbers for things like age demographics of suicides or attempted suicides? Did the first lockdowns and restrictions work? If so, why the second? If not, why the second? Can you provide a recent study involving masks and their effectiveness against COVID-19 specifically, or the advantages or disadvantages of mask wearing? How is it possible that Walmart, Home Depot, and countless grocery stores have not been shut down due to an employee testing positive, where another small business, one person tested positive and they closed down for at least a week, if not two? 6, can you see or know of when this ends? If not, are we to consider this our future forever? We have several more unanswered questions and we'll continue to ask, but let's start with these. The remainder of my time, as well as all you need to answer these questions. I leave it to you, gentlemen. And I believe my son's speech was cut off or something?
Not at all.
No.
Not at all, sir.
All right.
Are you?
That's what my wife was telling me, so I don't know.
Not at all.
Okay.
Are you finished, sir?
Yeah, I'm just waiting on answers now with the remainder of my time and as much time as you guys need.
Sir, this is your time to speak. We'll reach out to you at another time. Our council rules and procedures don't allow us to speak now. But you go ahead, we'll reach out to you.
Do I expect a call?
You expect a call from me after this meeting.
Let them know.
Thank you.
We're gonna go ahead and go to another call now, Mr. Pereira.
It was the public that could not hear him, that he was cut off from.
Sorry.
So it was something IT again.
Yes, sorry. Have a good evening, sir.
Yep.
Thank you.
Hello?
Good evening, ma'am. It's Council President Vincenti. May I have your name and address for the record, please?
Sure. It's Kimberly Novak at 4115 St. Clair Bridge Road in Jarrettsville.
Thank you, ma'am.
Good evening, County Council. I've been listening to the discussion tonight, and I want to know if any County Council member has been proactive and made an effort to speak with the county executive and the leaders of our public schools, libraries, and government offices to come up with a reopening plan. While I do understand that you may not be in control of each of these services, we expect that you're all working together to get our county open. In the past 2 weeks, we've continued to see the negative effects destroying our community stemming from our ineffective restrictions. While I'm not trying to glorify any of these cases, these facts must be stated. Unfortunately, there was a third murder-suicide on November 18th in Edgewood. For whatever individual circumstances that occurred in all 3 cases, people are being pushed to the edge. In Baltimore County, there was a highly publicized teen suicide last month who had suffered from the isolation that we created. At the last meeting, a brave 3rd grader called in, who you could tell was in tears speaking. She gave her own account of her struggles learning online and asked why her friends in other areas can attend in-person school, but she cannot. Do you have an answer for her? If you weren't in tears listening to her plea, your hearts may have hardened too much to care any longer for our youngest citizens. Online learning, as we can see from Baltimore County, is also subject to attacks from outsiders who have been very effective in shutting down a major school system's learning platform. Hear the cries from local businesses who are trying to stay afloat. Black Eyed Susie's in Bel Air is publicly asking for help since they've missed 10 months of holiday business and have little stimulus money left to keep their doors open. Restrictions don't work. Businesses close, people lose their jobs, and whole families suffer. But what our government leaders tell us is that these restrictions are necessary to save our citizens. Clearly, they're not working. And what is the cost? How are other counties open despite the numbers? Why are we not open? And even still, why are we still paying full price ransom on our property taxes to a county that is no longer providing the services we pay for? If you believe sanitizer, masks, glass partitions, and 6 feet work, then why are things still closed? I can't help but notice that national chain stores are operational, but super spreader schools must be shut down. You can't have it both ways.
The CDC and Fauci are both saying schools are safe to open, by the way. And if you believe masks are the most effective way, do a little science experiment tonight. Go outside in the freezing cold and put on your mask and take a look at which direction your warm breath goes. Our county health advisor mentioned earlier a possible vaccine and an emphasis to the council on facts. Please know it is a fact. We've had a flu vaccine since the 1930s, and yet every year 450-some thousand people die of the flu. The fastest vaccine that's ever been developed by humans took 4 years, and that was for months. Consider the possible consequences of injecting a very new, relatively untested vaccine to millions of people. The citizens of Harford County demand a full reopening of our county services and schools and no more harmful restrictions. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
And our final two speakers this evening are Michelle Nicholson and David Tritt.
This is Dave speaking.
Good evening, sir. It's Council President Vincenti. May I have your name and address for the record, please?
David Tritt, 2500 block of Sandy Hook Road in Forest Hill. How are you?
I'm good, sir.
Since I only have 3 minutes, I just wanted to share an article from the American Institute for Economic Research. And by the way, that guy Giovanni did go out for a minute. I missed like the middle of everything he said.
We've been having some IT difficulties here with the internet, so bear with us. Continue, sir.
But this article was written on the 18th of November this year. It's called The Cost of Lockdowns, a Preliminary Report. It reads, in the debate over coronavirus policy, there's been far too little focus on the cost of lockdowns. It's very common for the proponents of these interventions to write articles and large studies without even mentioning the downside. Here's a brief look at the cost of stringencies in the United States and around the world, including stay-at-home orders, closing of businesses and schools, restrictions on gatherings, shutting of arts and sports, restrictions on medical services, and interventions in the freedom of movement. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but and everything I'm going to read is from the CDC unless otherwise stated. But during late January 2020, 40% of U.S. adults reported to be struggling with mental or health or substance abuse. Of adults surveyed, 10.7% had thoughts of suicide compared to 4.3% in 2018. Reported symptoms of anxiety were 3 times higher than they were in the second quarter of 2019, and reported symptoms of depression were 4 times higher than they were in the second quarter of 2019. Of individuals aged 18 to 24, 25.5% considered suicide. That's more than 1 in 4. Let's skip over a few of these. This is a big one. Between April and October, the portion of emergency visits related to mental health for children aged 5 to 11, ages 5 to 11 increased by 24%, and it increased by 31% for age 12 to 17 compared to 2019. 13% of survey respondents said they started or increased substance use to cope with the pandemic. I'm just looking, there's hunger and poverty statistics here. Hunger caused by the pandemic is responsible for the deaths of 10,000 children. That's in the Lancet of July 2020. Approximately 20 million more children will suffer from wasting or weakening of the body from emaciation in the first 12 months of the pandemic. There's cancer treatments, there's STEMI treatments that have not been done because people have been afraid to go to the hospital. 38% decrease in STEMI treatments in 9 major hospitals across the U.S. We know that those over the age of 65 and those with pre-existing conditions are most susceptible to COVID-19. Young and healthy people are not significantly threatened by COVID-19. That's not to say we don't care for these people, but these thoughtless lockdowns are jeopardizing the very systems that we need to be in place. That includes businesses, that includes charity, that includes hospitals.
Mr. Trent, I need you to bring your comments to a close, please.
Yes, sir. We need those systems to be in place to give these people proper medical care. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Dixon, is there anyone else signed up?
There is no one else signed up, Mr. President.
And when no one else signed up, this meeting will be adjourned. Thank you all.